When you went to bed June 2nd, you thought the primary in Los Angeles was over, but right now in LA, the mayor's race is still moving. Spencer Pratt's lead for second place, as we showed you last week, well, now it's disappeared as new ballots keep dropping in, and Nithya Raman just took the spot by a few thousand votes. Why? The election was last week. Well, because California is one of only 14 states that keeps counting mail ballots after Election Day. Does your state do that? Well, today we're laying out exactly which states let this happen, which ones demand every ballot is in by the time the polls close, and why the numbers in places like LA are still shifting while the rest of the country seems to have moved on. But before we review those states that have mail-in ballots being counted well beyond Election Day, let's take a look at some of those numbers out of California, starting with that LA mayor's race. Countless number of candidates, but only two are going to go off into the November election. And if you look at the data from last week compared to just this morning when we checked the results that are still pouring in, you have Karen Bass still at top. But last week, Spencer Pratt was at number 2 and Nithya Raman was at number 3. But this week, that's changed. Nithya Raman now in second place as Spencer Pratt is in third. And if that trend continues, the official numbers will have the LA mayor's race between Bass and Raman rather than between Bass and Pratt. So that's going to be an ongoing story. It's even been something that's been highlighted over the weekend in an interview that President Donald Trump gave to Meet the Press, questioning what's going on in California. But it's not just the LA mayor's race, it's also the governor's race, where last week, Steve Hilton, a Republican, came in second place, almost ensuring that he was going to take on Xavier Becerra in that race in November, and Democrat Tom Steyer last week was in third place. But this week, almost the same story as in LA. Hilton now in third, with Steyer rising to number 2 as the numbers of mail-in ballots continue to come in the state of California. So what's happening? Well, you've got a variety of different questions about election integrity that some Republicans in Congress are trying to get states to adhere to, like restricting mail-in ballots to only those who serve in the military overseas or individuals who have health issues that are keeping them from going out to vote on Election Day or even taking part in early voting that happens. President Donald Trump even went as far as to issue an executive order to impose a nationwide Election Day receipt deadline. But that was enjoined in the courts last year. So state rules, the way they are, they currently apply. So which states allow for ballots to be counted after Election Day? 14 states across the country do this. Washington, the District of Columbia, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands allow mailed ballots to be counted if they arrive after Election Day, but they have to meet certain criteria. They have to be postmarked and follow different types of rules to ensure that that ballot is legitimate. But here's just a breakdown of some of the other states and jurisdictions that allow for counting ballots past the Election Day. In Alaska, they postmarked by Election Day. If they're received within 10 days, they can be counted. In California, as we've highlighted, they have to be postmarked by Election Day and received no later than 7 days after the election. So that cutoff day is tomorrow, Tuesday. In D.C., postmarked on Election Day, received within 10 days after Election Day as well. You've got Guam, very similar. Illinois, if the ballot is postmarked on or before Election Day, it has to be received within 14 days after Election Day. Not 10 days, a full 2 weeks. I'm talking with elections officials in Illinois. They say the bulk majority of those mail-in ballots come in within just a few days after the election, and rarely do they continue to flood in all the way up to the 14 days. But that question in Illinois has been challenged in the courts, as have other states across the country, on when they have to have a deadline to have ballots counted by. In Maryland, if the ballot's postmarked on or before Election Day and received within 10 days after Election Day, then they can be counted. Massachusetts, another state that allows for ballots to be counted after Election Day. but they have to be postmarked on or before Election Day. Mississippi, postmarked on or before Election Day. If they're received within 5 business days, they can be counted. But obviously, all of this, it could come into flux with the U.S. Supreme Court ruling on federal preemption of this rule. Now, Nevada, they postmark their election ballots. If it's received by 5 p.m. on the 4th day after an election, then those can be counted. New Jersey, they have 144 hours spelled in. So they have to be postmarked on or before Election Day. And if they are received within 144 hours of the close of the polls, they can be counted. Now, non-postmarked ballots received within 48 hours of the close of the polls, those may also be valid there in that state. Again, that was New Jersey. New York, if a ballot is postmarked by Election Day, then you'll receive it 7 days after Election Day. It can be counted. Elections officials in Oregon, they say postmarked or on Election Day. And if it's received within a week after Election Day, it can be counted. And various other jurisdictions like Puerto Rico also have similar types of provisions. And even Texas, if it's postmarked on or before Election Day and received on the day after Election Day, then it can be counted. And again, other jurisdictions like Virginia, they've got a similar provision. If it's received before noon on the 3rd day after an Election Day, then it can be counted if it fits certain provisions. Washington State as well, postmarked on or before Election Day, then the ballot can be counted no later than the day before certification, which is actually up to 21 days after a general election or 14 days after a primary. West Virginia, another of the 14 states that allows for postmarked ballots to be received after Election Day and still be counted. So that's just a list now. Again, a lot of different provisions here with each state having different types of policies in place. And that may be something bolstering Republicans who are looking for some uniformity across the country when it comes to federal elections. Now, despite the president of the United States issuing that executive order that a court has put on hold, the push continues in the U.S. Senate with voter ID laws and issues to try to rein in ballots that are being counted after Election Day. And even the U.S. Supreme Court has a case delving into this question that still has yet to be addressed. These are obviously going to be some pretty important questions as you've got another election set for tomorrow as states across the country continue to head to the polls, including in Maine, where our team from the Center Square will be watching closely. And if you didn't hear your state in that list of 14 states, likely accept those ballots only up to Election Day. But we'll continue to watch this issue and more, not just in the Supreme Court, but also these states, tomorrow's primaries in Maine, Nevada, and North Dakota. Be sure to stay up to date with thecentersquare.com.